But then if it's too eccentric, then you'll get the knee valgus, and you'll see it like everything just kind of like collapses inward.
How we construct a box squat based on a couple main pitch mechanic faults or whatever we want to call them.
Manipulate
Mm-hmm.
the load,
Mm-hmm.
the box height, the yield,
Mm-hmm.
the foot position. Like those are the big ones that I was thinking of, like when to use heel ramp, why you might stagger someone's like that would be kind of cool about how like some people we literally don't let do anything symmetrical. It's all
Yeah, I mean,
staggered.
to be honest, most people shouldn't do anything symmetrical, really.
I wanted to
Um,
talk about a little bit about max propulsion and how you can manipulate stance to get some a better
okay.
IR, like why people's stance gets wider. It's because they're losing
Uh-huh.
IR, so their ER
Uh-huh.
space gets out here, right? Because
Yeah.
you need the ER to be able to superimpose the IR. Set how to set up a squat for maybe like two different people, like one person
Yeah, so
has no ERs, one person has no IRs.
let's go through the phase. Let's keep on with the phase of propulsion and get a definition of that, and then we can go through like just the general archetype differences for a squat, and then we can start narrowing it down to what you're talking about.
So starting from the top, right?
So like the
We're doing a box squat.
yeah, let's call it like define a squat, and we're gonna start
So
with the propulsion phases.
the top of the squat, you're gonna be in late propulsion.
Why?
So the hip is extended and the center of
Hmm.
mass is over the foot.
Hmm. Yeah,
Definition on
no,
that.
yeah,
The hips in a traditionally extended position,
yeah, slightly extended.
relatively. So then like the connective tissue behavior, so you're gonna have a descended pelvic diaphragm.
Yep,
You're gonna
because
have
you're
an
inhaled.
inhaled skeleton. So you'll be biased towards ER, which would be yielding connective tissue. So the body is absorbing energy. It's storing energy. That's going to be um, concentric pelvic outlet, but an
Is
eccentric
gonna,
pelvic diaphragm, right? It's an eccentric pelvic diaphragm.
yeah, I agree with that. I'm not.
Outlet's concentric, right? It's a counter nutated sacrum,
Yeah, yeah, no, I get it.
so it's concentric. So that's because the diaphragm's descending, right?
Yeah,
Yielding concentric, or yeah,
outlet
eccentric.
down
So that's the
to
top of your squat, and then you're going down, which you'd get to middle propulsion, which would be a shape change. Like literally, the skeleton goes through a shape change from like ER to IR. So
it's
uh,
exhaled.
you have the exhaled skeleton, concentric pelvic diaphragm. Wait, pelvic diaphragm's ascending because they're going through an exhale. So
Hmm.
the guts are coming up.
So yeah,
Um,
so you have to have a concentric pelvic diaphragm to get the guts up.
concentric pelvic diaphragm, overcoming connective tissue behavior.
Hmm.
So you're releasing energy, you're overcoming gravity. Yeah, so I said concentric pelvic diaphragm. We already said that, right?
Yep,
Um, it's going to be a magnification of IR. So you'll start to see like the IR pelvis
that,
more
that's where
represented.
if you don't have that, like you need valgus, like the ladies,
I was gonna say, yeah,
they
if they
can't get
don't
a
have that middle P,
they they can't get a concentric diaphragm. That's when the knee valgus
right?
shows
Yeah,
up.
like the recently pregnant females or like incontinence too. So that's kind of interesting when you're working with a kid that always has to go to the bathroom every 20 minutes, right? Like you work with kids like that. It's like, all right, don't have them yield on the box.
Yeah. Don't yield on a box. Don't do depth drops.
Don't do depth drops. Yeah, like they jump off the box and their knees hit together. That is a inhaled skeleton, right? Like they literally can't exhale.
I've been coaching the
Um,
exhale. I've been coaching the exhale now, just more than the inhale. Like get all that air out.
it's tough. Like even for
It's
me,
hard
like
to do.
you
It's hard
trap
to do.
air. Yeah, you trap air in.
Okay, so that's
Um,
middle. That's middle
that's
piecing.
middle.
Well, then
Yeah,
then what?
the bottom. Once you go below parallel, that's when everything kind of reverses back to where we were at the top. But it's going to be relative to the center of mass, right? Like the center of mass move back, relatively
Mm-hmm.
speaking.
Mm-hmm.
Isn't that the difference between? Because I always get confused. Like, it's the energy storing phase when you're in early, and then it's the energy releasing phase when you're in late. As the center of mass moves past the.
Isn't max propulsion like when you're going to be using the most energy releasing?
But isn't it like moving towards ER? So like you're
Uh-huh.
releasing the energy.
Yeah.
That was what I was thinking of. A difference between early and late is just like the center of mass is behind the foot when you're in early, and so that's like storing energy, and then
Yeah.
you have the conservation of momentum after max P, where that momentum like carries the center of mass over the foot. That was like my understanding of
Mm-hmm.
it.
Mm-hmm. I
So
agree with that.
both are inhaled representations because you're re-expanding.
So when you're at the if you go past 90, are you now in early squat or is that just late?
You're in early at the squat. Yeah. So it's an inhale, it's yielding connective tissue, an eccentric pelvic diaphragm, you're storing energy. And that is just like you're not as strong in that position because you're in ER or someone's trying to do a max lift, like they would never get to the early reps, right? Like as soon as you
Yeah.
magnify the load and you put a huge load on someone, you reduce that ER space. Like
Mm-hmm.
they're already towards middle.
Yeah.
So that could be a talking point too, is like how the stance starts to change and the height of the box change. If you're trying to magnify someone's uh, like force producing capabilities, you
What
wouldn't really
now?
want to put them in early.
Yeah. Think generally, wide and narrows, who should do what type of squat or what type of squats are there?
That's what I was gonna say. Yeah, so like when you're setting up a squat, you gotta consider their structural bias. So like if they're a wide ISA, they're gonna be an exhaled skeleton with a compensatory inhale, right? So like their skeleton, it has a concentric pelvic diaphragm, um, overcoming connective tissue. Um,
There should be concentric all over.
yeah, they're just concentric overcoming and struggling to store energy, right? Like,
So
um,
they're the dense, tight guys that struggle being relaxed on like a depth drop or any sort of like
right? Yeah, like pogo
gathering.
hops. I was thinking of like watching people do pogo hops where they just get off the ground right away, like they
It's
never
gonna
like
be
yield and be
it'll
spongy,
be yeah, it'll be really if stiffness is your goal, they're gonna be good at it.
right? Like the RSI jumps, they'll have a really good RSI score. So I mean, I'm thinking of like a specific case where there's a wide ISA and they had a ton of just like concentric muscle activity. Like they were butt squeezing, no posterior outlet. So it was a right-handed pitcher, when he drops down the mound, like when he tries to get into his back hip, his center of mass goes forward. So one of the views that I like to see a lot with pitchers is like watching them from behind because you can see the guts drop. Like you can see
Yeah.
literally like what the pelvic diaphragm's doing. Because if it's so concentric, the guts will not drop down. But then if it's too eccentric, then you'll get the knee valgus and you'll see it like everything just kind of like collapses inward.
Yeah.
So that's where like we literally used the box squat where he was my remote client and he like wasn't sending me videos of his box squat. and I kept on trying to get him to yield, and then he sent me a video, and it was like no yield at all. So he
Yeah.
would do like, and he thought he was unloading. Like I'd teach them to like do a full sit, unload
They
onto the
stay
box.
tight on that box and all
Well,
squeezed
I
up.
was gonna say is like the shoulder. So like if your shoulders are still in front of your hips, then you have not unloaded. Like you're
Yeah.
still
Yeah.
concentrically oriented, right? But
Yeah.
if you let the shoulders come back, so they're stacked over your pelvis, then and this is where it gets cool, where you're getting the yield in a specific location. So you're literally getting the skeleton to yield. And that's what I was using the box squat for in that situation, because like he was really strong, he was
Mhm.
really bound up and tight and just like really good force producer. But he could not store energy, so you'd see it in his pitching mechanics, where like he would try and load onto his back hip, but his weight would just go forward, so it was like
Yeah.
immediately losing the inside heel contact.
So he's a guy with a not very good like body weight squat.
He like leans back, like he tries to get too heel heavy, and then he kind of like
Yeah.
falls back,
Yeah.
or he'll like lean forward and his
He'll
heels
have
come
to
up.
he'll have to go chest width forward.
And he's another guy that like I just staggered his stance, and it looked a lot better. I just put his right foot in front for like everything.
Why is it,
That exercise in itself,
why did you do that?
he was kind of turned to the right, so I was thinking if I put his right foot in front, then it would delay his left side. That was my interpretation. Is like he had no, like when his front foot got down, his weight was already so far forward that he couldn't slow himself down. So like
Yeah.
the yield and the delay was coming from his knee, and it wasn't coming
Oof,
from his hip. So you'd
oof.
see it on his pitching mechanics. Like his front foot landed and it all looked good until he loaded his front foot, and then the
Yeah.
load just went forward immediately. So when I'm watching the front side mechanics, like I'm looking for the load to actually be on the heel first, like the first part.
Hmm.
Think about like the wave of the foot, where
Hmm.
when his foot gets down, he had the heel down, but as soon as he transferred the load onto his front foot, his heel like came up and his forefoot got heavy. So I would rather that be like reversed, where the heel gets heavy and then
Yeah.
forefoot pushes and like finishes
Yeah.
the rotation.
But he wasn't
Like,
doing like that's funny because I mean I usually see, the fall I usually see front foot is more like they just go toe down first. It's like a big fall. I see.
you
I
mean
remember.
without the delay, you mean?
Yeah, yeah.
Well, I mean,
Usually, I mean, I see guys
the
roll.
first
I see guys
contact,
go.
I mean,
Yeah, I see guys go heel strike and then like roll out, or heel
yeah.
strike and collapse in, but not usually like heel strike and then almost like top to toe. I mean, I guess if we really, I guess if they're wearing freaking the Nike Shocks, then we're for sure.
I mean, I'd rather them keep their heel down, like past ball release.
Yeah. Oh
That's
yeah.
what I'm looking for.
Oh yeah.
But just like watching where, I think that's what you're saying too, is like just watching
Hmm.
where the load is placed.
Yep.
And it was the same thing with him. Like, yeah, he would not get his first met head down. His arch would just like roll to the outside immediately, and it would kind of be the same thing on his back foot. So we used I think the box squat was like really helpful for that, because he could
Okay.
sit all the way down and then he could like drive out of it with a full exhale. Um, so it's like turning the corner and getting his guts to drop down, because he comes to a full sit, and
Hmm.
then the box stops his guts from moving down. And then if you drive up out of it with like a strong exhale, that's gonna reverse the pressure. So now you're getting the guts to like spring up. Um,
Hmm.
right? Like that's what I think about with the box squat. Um,
Hmm.
but it was a high box squat because I knew he was kind of stuck in that like inhaled. Like, it was like really concentric. So I knew I wouldn't get him to like an early squat without some
Yeah.
compensation.
Yeah. I mean, when in doubt, like if they're on the table and they have pretty limited range of motion, you're not going to be able to have them go very low, right? You're
A
gonna have to
lot of it's
start them
like
high.
capturing their foot. contacts. Like that was something that I wanted to talk about at some point. Like if you have, I mean, his
That's
pitching mechanics, right? Like talking about pitching mechanics, like he had no layback, like literally just really pushy arm action,
hmm
no ER. Like his shoulder ER was like less than 90, I'd say.
hmm
And then like the front foot lead leg block or whatever, I guess. But like, yeah, the biggest thing was probably just trying to get that delay doing the yield. Um,
Probably had
because
no straight leg raise, right?
he had no straight leg raise, had IR, but like honestly, I think it was an orientation.
hmm
And then he had a magnification of ER on his
hmm
right hip, but I think that was what was losing his middle propulsion.
Okay. Yeah. So talking about staggered stance, like if you have someone with 60, 70 degrees of right hip ER and 20, 30 degrees of left hip ER, you
That's
probably
what it.
shouldn't.
That's basically his. Yeah, that was his
You
chessboard right there.
probably should. You probably shouldn't stagger them or square them up.
I
I was
mean, I
just thinking
could
about
square him
thinking
up, and
about.
it would just be a shift in his squat. He just side
Yeah.
bend. That's literally what his squat looked like. Yeah, it was like this
Just,
massive shift. But we staggered everything and gave him a bunch of step ups. Like I couldn't really get him into a split squat, so I thought the step up was like a better option.
yeah. Same thing, right? Like those hips. You might be able to do just one foot in front.
It was like a low step up. So I mean that yeah, I think that was
If
kind
you
of
had to
my case
split
study.
if you had to split on a guy with hips like that,
He
would
had
you
no
go
left hip ER, so I was thinking like you could probably get him into a what like a right foot forward.
right foot
I don't
forward?
know that honestly. Like I tried to give him split squats and they just
Just
look
bad, yeah.
terrible. Yeah, great kid though, but yeah, just like
I
very
think
oriented.
I want to revamp my entire training process and my new clients have make them do like one-on-ones, like 2 or 3 one-on-ones, and just literally go over foot contact for 3 sessions so that they can understand and grasp. That's like the thing I do the most is trying to fix. And it's partially exercise selection. Like I'm obviously not giving the people the right stuff if they really can't get their foot contacts, but there's also I always forget of the training aspect of like give them some context, they should be able to do it.